At the beginning of the first century, the world was still divided into separate civilizations that knew very little about one another. There were no international borders, no global governments, and no modern systems of communication. Most people would spend their entire lives within a few kilometers of where they were born. Yet between year 2 AD and year 5 AD, some of the most powerful civilizations in history were growing stronger and building systems that would influence the world for centuries. The most powerful state in the Western world was the Roman Empire. During these years, the empire was ruled by Emperor Augustus, one of the most important rulers in ancient history. Augustus had ended decades of Roman civil wars and created a stable imperial government. By 2 AD, Rome had entered a period of peace and prosperity that historians later called the Pax Romana, meaning the Roman peace. The Roman Empire stretched across vast territories. Its lands included Italy, Gaul, Hispania, Greece, Egypt, parts of North Africa, and regions of the Middle East. Millions of people lived under Roman rule, speaking different languages and following different customs, but all of them were governed by Roman laws and protected by Roman armies. The Roman military was one of the greatest fighting forces of the ancient world. The Roman legions were highly organized and disciplined. Soldiers were trained to march long distances, build forts, and fight in formation. During the years between 2 AD and 5 AD, Rome was not fighting a single great world war, but its armies remained active along its frontiers. Military campaigns and border operations took place in several regions as Rome continued protecting and organizing its enormous territories. One of the reasons for Rome's success was its engineering. The Romans built thousands of kilometers of roads connecting cities and military camps. These roads allowed soldiers, merchants, and government officials to travel quickly across the empire. Some Roman roads survived for hundreds and even thousands of years after they were built. Another great Roman achievement was its aqueduct system. These stone structures transported water from distant mountains and rivers into large cities. Roman cities also contained public baths, marketplaces, temples, and government buildings that demonstrated the empire's wealth and organizational abilities. The city of Rome itself was one of the largest cities in the world during this period. It may have had a population approaching 1 million people, making it one of the most important urban centers of the ancient world. The city contained impressive architecture, crowded markets, government institutions, and monuments dedicated to Roman victories and rulers. Another famous city under Roman control was Alexandria in Egypt. Alexandria was one of the greatest centers of trade and learning. Ships from many parts of the Mediterranean arrived at its ports carrying grain, wine, pottery, and luxury goods. The city was also known for its scholars and libraries, and remained one of the most important cities in the world. While Rome dominated the West, another powerful civilization existed in the East. China was ruled by the Han Dynasty. During the years between 2 AD and 5 AD, Emperor Ping of Han was officially the ruler of the empire, although many political decisions were heavily influenced by powerful officials and members of the royal family. Despite internal political struggles, the Han government remained highly organized. The Han Empire possessed one of the most advanced administrative systems in the ancient world. Government officials collected taxes, maintained records, supervised farming activities, and managed large territories through a complex bureaucracy. Written documents played an important role in administration, making China one of the most organized civilizations of its time. Agriculture formed the foundation of Chinese society. Most people were farmers who cultivated rice, wheat, and millet. Irrigation systems and farming techniques supported large populations and allowed cities to grow. The capital city of Chang'an was among the greatest cities of the ancient world. It served as the political and administrative center of the Han Empire. Government officials, merchants, craftsmen, and scholars lived within its walls. The city became an important center for trade and culture. One of China's most famous products was silk. The process of producing silk was highly developed and carefully protected. silk became one of the most valuable luxury products in the world. Merchants carried silk westward through trade routes that connected China with Central Asia and eventually with regions near the Roman Empire. During this same period, early forms of paper technology were also developing in China. Although paper had not yet spread throughout the world, its development represented one of humanity's most important technological achievements. Between Rome and China lay many other civilizations and kingdoms. South Asia did not have one ruler controlling the entire region. Instead, different kingdoms governed different territories. Agriculture remained the center of economic life, and important trade networks connected the region to Central Asia and the Indian Ocean. Indian merchants became famous for trading spices, textiles, precious stones, and crafted goods. Indian ports were active centers of commerce, receiving ships from distant lands and sending valuable products to foreign markets. Many cities in South Asia grew because of trade. Markets sold food, cloth, pottery, jewelry, and metal tools. Trade allowed ideas and products to move from one civilization to another, even though the people themselves often never traveled great distances. Beyond the great empires existed many tribal societies. Germanic tribes lived beyond the northern frontiers of the Roman Empire. They were not part of Roman civilization and maintained their own political and military systems. Roman leaders paid close attention to these tribes because they could become both trading partners and military threats. In Arabia, tribal communities controlled important trade routes across deserts. Caravans carried goods such as spices, incense, and luxury products through these regions. In Africa, numerous kingdoms and communities continued to develop their own political and cultural traditions. Although they were less documented than Rome or China, these societies played important roles in regional trade networks. The world's population during this period is estimated to have been between 170 and 300 million people. Most people lived in rural areas and depended entirely on farming for survival. Cities represented only a small percentage of the total population. The majority of humanity lived in villages, worked on farms, raised animals, and produced food. Life moved according to the seasons. A successful harvest meant prosperity, while poor harvests created difficulties for entire communities. Technology between 2 AD and 5 AD was advanced for its time, but remained simple by modern standards. The Romans used concrete in construction and built durable roads and bridges. Their military engineering allowed them to construct forts and defensive structures quickly. The Chinese developed advanced methods of silk production and improved administrative technologies through writing and record keeping. Iron tools became increasingly important in farming and construction throughout many regions. Better tools increased agricultural production and improved economic stability. Transportation depended on horses, camels, oxen, and ships. There were no engines and no mechanical machines capable of moving people quickly. Trade required patience, and journeys often lasted weeks or months. Communication was also slow. Information traveled through messengers and written documents carried by hand. News from distant lands could take months to arrive. Between year 2 AD and year 5 AD, the world did not witness a single event that transformed all civilizations at once. Instead, these years represented a period of stability and gradual development. Great empires strengthened their governments, trade networks expanded, cities continued to grow, and technologies slowly improved. Although the people living during these years could not know it, they were building the foundations upon which future centuries of history would stand. While the great empires of Rome and Han China remained stable during the years between 2 AD and 5 AD, their rulers understood that peace depended on military strength. Armies remained active, borders were constantly guarded, and governments spent enormous resources maintaining order across their territories. The Roman Empire under Emperor Augustus possessed one of the most powerful military systems in history. The Roman legions were stationed in different provinces to defend the empire's frontiers and maintain peace within its territories. Roman soldiers lived in military camps that later developed into towns and cities. Every legion had engineers, builders, and administrators, in addition to soldiers, making the Roman army one of the most organized institutions of the ancient world. Although there was no single massive war between 2 AD and 5 AD, Rome faced several local military operations and border conflicts. Roman commanders continued securing newly organized provinces and maintaining order in regions that had recently been incorporated into the empire. The empire's northern frontiers, especially near the Rhine and Danube rivers, required constant military attention because of the presence of Germanic tribes beyond Roman territory. These tribes were independent communities that lived outside Roman control. They had their own leaders, warriors, and traditions. While some tribes traded peacefully with Rome, others occasionally came into conflict with Roman authorities. Because of this, the Roman military remained alert and prepared. One of the most famous military leaders of this period was not a conquering king, but Emperor Augustus himself. Although Augustus was no longer personally leading campaigns as he had done in earlier years, his military reforms continued to shape the Roman Empire. He established a professional standing army and created systems that allowed Rome to maintain stability across vast territories. Rome also possessed one of the greatest networks of cities in the ancient world. The city of Rome remained the political heart of the empire. Government decisions affecting millions of people were made there. The city contained temples, administrative buildings, theaters, public baths, and monuments dedicated to Roman history and religion. The Pantheon, although rebuilt later in its most famous form, already existed as an important temple in Rome. Numerous triumphal monuments and public buildings reflected the empire's wealth and engineering abilities. Alexandria in Egypt remained one of the greatest commercial cities of the world. The city served as an important center for trade, education, and culture. Grain from Egypt helped feed much of the Roman population, making Alexandria economically essential to the empire. In the east, the Han Dynasty of China continued to govern one of the world's largest populations. Emperor Ping of Han remained the official ruler during most of this period, although political influence within the imperial court increasingly shifted toward powerful officials and noble families. The Han military protected important trade routes and defended the empire's frontiers against threats from nomadic groups living beyond Chinese territory. Maintaining these borders was essential because trade and communication depended upon secure routes. China's capital, Chang'an, continued to grow as one of the largest cities on Earth. Government institutions, markets, workshops, and residential districts made the city an important political and economic center. Merchants from different regions visited its markets, bringing goods and information from distant lands. Silk remained China's most famous product. The production of silk had become a highly specialized industry. Chinese silk was considered a luxury item and eventually reached regions thousands of kilometers away through trade networks. Although merchants rarely traveled the entire distance themselves, goods passed from one trading group to another, connecting civilizations indirectly. Technology during this period continued to develop gradually rather than through sudden inventions. Roman engineers improved road maintenance and expanded infrastructure projects. Their roads connected military camps, cities, and ports, making trade and administration more efficient. Aqueduct systems continued supplying water to urban populations. These engineering projects demonstrated a high level of practical knowledge and organization. In China, improvements in administrative record-keeping and early paper-making techniques contributed to the efficiency of government institutions. Agricultural tools also improved farming productivity. In South Asia, iron technology and textile production remained important industries. Indian craftsmen were known for producing high-quality fabrics and metal goods. Trade routes through the Indian Ocean connected South Asia with Arabia, East Africa, and other regions. The sea trade of this period became increasingly important. Merchants understood seasonal wind patterns and used them to travel across large distances. Ships carried spices, textiles, precious stones, incense, and luxury products between different civilizations. Daily life for most people, however, remained simple. The majority of the world's population still lived in villages and worked in agriculture. Farming remained the foundation of every major civilization. Cities depended entirely on the food produced by rural communities. People lived in houses made of stone, mud, wood, or brick, depending on the region. Clothing was produced from wool, linen, cotton, or silk. Food varied between civilizations, but grains, vegetables, fruits, and locally available products formed the basis of most diets. Education was available only to a limited number of people. Government officials, wealthy families, and certain religious groups had greater access to learning and written records. Most people gained knowledge through experience and family traditions. Communication remained slow. News could take weeks or months to travel from one region to another. Because of this, civilizations often developed independently and knew very little about distant societies. Between year 2 AD and year 5 AD, the world did not experience one single event that changed history forever. Instead, this period represented an age of organization and consolidation. Great empires strengthened their institutions, expanded trade, improved technologies, and maintained political stability. These 4 years may appear quiet compared to later centuries filled with famous conquerors and enormous wars, but they were important because they allowed civilizations to grow stronger and more connected through commerce and administration. By the end of year 5 AD, Rome remained the dominant power of the Mediterranean world. Han China continued as one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth, and trade networks stretching across Asia and beyond were becoming increasingly important. The ancient world had not yet reached its greatest transformations, but the foundations of future history were already in place. The systems, cities, roads, technologies, and governments that existed during these years would influence many generations to come.